Hello there, everyone. It's Roger here with the third Hangout in a series of three, themed around. If you remember from the first two episodes, we were looking at the idea that once you're fully self-aware of what's going on within your body as well as your thoughts, you're more productive and you're addressing your own well-being needs into the bargain. So I happen to think that's a good place in which to operate, and certainly one in a busy and very interconnected world, which we seem to be living in increasingly these days. I thought with the third of these Hangouts, what I'd do is pull together the themes from the first two sessions and take us a little bit further forward, because we're talking about what's going on within ourselves. And as I was suggesting, the world in which we live is very interconnected. So we're going to be segueing seamlessly into the world of empathy. I'm going to go on to do a couple of Hangouts about in the weeks to come. But first of all, let's backtrack just a little bit and look at the ground we've covered over these three sessions. In the first session, I introduced the concept of what's going on in your head, gut. Oftentimes we'll be functioning from the neck upwards, just thinking about, thinking about our thoughts as if they were divorced from what we're feeling. And we're trying to, of course, unite our left brain, the logical and the sequence, the processing brain, with the innovative and creative and sparky right side. That's a pretty big deal in and of itself. But also what's going on for us is going on in our heart. That's where the feelings reside. And we know those phrases because they're true. My heart wasn't fully in it, or I was heartbroken when. That's where the location of our feelings and our feeling self is cited. And then we've got gut instinct, that thing that drives us forward or holds us back instinctively without needing to process anything or even check in with what's happening in the middle of our chest. The gut instinct's important too. So I argue that it's a whole person approach that's going to be productive for you. And if you take time out on a regular basis, every day, morning, afternoon, however frequently is appropriate for you, just to check in with yourself and to know what's happening for you. If you're happy, if you're fulfilled, great. Doesn't feel quite right if things aren't sitting well with you. Is it the situation? Is it the person? Is it something else that's coming up as an issue from your past? Whatever it is, address it for too long, because the longer those negative feelings are a feature of your day-to-day, weekly, monthly existence, the harder it becomes for you to function fully in a holistic way. The connections that you make are fragile. Perhaps you're in a situation where you're saying one thing and feeling something else. The more incongruity there is, the less flow there is. And the less flow there is, the less productive you are, because you're busy fighting other battles other than the thing that is right in front of you and is fairly obvious to you, because you've got all that feedback to work with. So that was the first session. The second session was slightly different. Triggers, how some of the stories that we tell ourselves can get in the way, can cause us to kick into a cycle of negative behaviors and so forth, or self-doubt. Our obstacles or seemingly insurmountable challenges can crop up when actually within ourselves and what resources externally we can pull upon, we might be in a much better position, better choices to renew connections with people who can serve us ever so much better than the people who we happen to have around us at the time. Or perhaps to find out that the situation in which you're operating just isn't the right one for you. And I'll talk about square pegs and round holes in a minute. But it's important, again, to draw upon all of that good data that you've got, to validate it, to make sure it's real, and then to do something with it. You know, I love quotes and statistics and so forth. As a preparation for this session, I came across something that Jung, the philosopher, the great thinker, said, which is not what you say you'll do. And I think that really talks about intentionality and the way that we approach the world, because oftentimes, a while ago, we'll be living just in our heads and we're full of great plans and ideas and so forth. Out of, I know I've done it, possibly you have too, which we talk ourselves out of because that's not the sort of thing that people like us do. You're the wrong age, or the wrong gender, or the wrong educational background, or whatever it is. It's just stuff that gets in the way. What have you can be an absolute killer when it comes to making changes, to learning something new. And if you allow it to be the prevalent mode that you're operating in, I can't do so and so because, how many opportunities are you not putting yourself up for? How many doors are you not going through? How many social circles or workplace um, meetings, etc., are you not a part of? So your voice doesn't get heard. You get to feel a little bit diminished, a little bit less out there in the world than you could be. And that's not a good idea, because the people who could benefit from your gifts, your genius, your unique way of looking at the world, they'll never get to hear from you because you never showed up for that event. You didn't participate in that meeting. You didn't, your presence felt online. That's that we covered in the first and the second sessions. Here we are in session 3, pulling it all together and introducing the concepts of empathy as well, because that's pretty important in an interconnected, interpersonal sense. So let's go back to first principles. Let's look at what's actually going on when self-awareness is deployed in the world, the 9 to 5 and beyond as well. Now, one of the things I think is a really good step to take is to keep a diary, keep a journal, log how a fortnight looks, 10 days, whatever is the appropriate period for you. And then look back at the peaks and troughs. So if you start from the moment you wake up and you keep your journal through to the end of the day, just record how many times you're feeling 10 out of 10 or 8, 9, 10 out of 10, fully in your element. You're creating, you're innovating, you're serving your clients, your customers, you're working well with your colleagues, you feel good in yourself. When you look over that week or 10-day period, you can see that most of the time that you're up and at 'em and in the world, you're feeling fine. You're doing everything that you're looking after your own well-being, etc., because you've had enough sleep, you've eaten a good diet, you've taken enough exercise, you've had time to have fun with your family, your partner, the people who make you laugh and make you feel good about yourself. For work, whatever work means for you, to other people. If you're in the 9 to 5, you're a team leader, you're a team member, whatever it is, you're fully able to participate, to play your part. If you work for yourself, if you're a freelancer, what have you, you're in the frame of mind where you can go out, serve the clients that you already have, attract new clients into your world, build that trip of because you're just an interesting person to be around, the people gravitate towards you. Literally, when you turn up for the events and the networking sessions, etc., virtually as well. When you're participating in forums, when you're tweeting, when you're using Facebook for work, etc., you've always got something very interesting and useful to say. You're always offering service to somebody else, or you're signposting other people's material, and it's valid. It's not to big yourself up. It's to make value, or to add value even, to other people. So if you're doing all of those things, and 80% of your time is spent in that way, that's probably a big tick, isn't it? It means that life feels sweet. It feels like you're rested, you're energetic, you're reaping the benefits of all of that whenever you show up and you serve your clients, your colleagues, or other people, because you're showing your best self. Of course, that's an ideal state where 80+% of your time is spent like. How about if you're coming in at about 50 to 60% of the time, you're on absolutely top form, the time, not so much. The first part of the series, you might remember that there's a statistic here in the UK, which is that 4 out of 10 people in employment shop, their factory, their project office, and they do not enjoy what they're doing. 4 out of 10 of them, because their skills are not suited to the job that they're doing, the square peg round hole phenomena, or perhaps the clients for whom they work are really hard work or ungrateful, or just not the sort of people that they'd choose to serve if they had a choice. Or maybe, and this is a big issue for people the world over, of course, their supervision, their leadership, their management in the organization for which they, where they work, they say one thing, they do another. They're really not giving the feedback that people deserve. And essentially, there's a mismatch between what the person you would like to do and what you're actually called upon to do. I know from my own experience, which I think I recounted previously, it can feel very, very demoralizing to be in that situation, because the longer you stay in the square peg round hole scenario is in your body, because you're holding a lot of stuff in, just able to relax and do the thing that you naturally do so very well. You're having to keep it all together. Your thoughts become unfocused, your efforts become less and less productive, and your body just feels stressed and tense. And even the things you say might be inauthentic, because you want to say, I need to go home now, but you're actually staying a little bit longer because that's the culture in which you work, etc. There is a disconnect, in other words, between where naturally your energies would flow and where naturally you'd show up, be present, and provide really great results, and the world you're actually having to inhabit because you feel that's appropriate. The longer there's that disconnect, the greater is the harm to you in terms of your well-being, to your colleagues and to your team in terms of interconnectiveness, your clients or customers, because they're getting less and less good results. You're busy, in other words, spending your energies in a way that is pretty unproductive. So that's in the 50 to 60 category. If half of your week is roughly spent unproductively like that, think about it. And then think about the worst case scenario, where you're in the 30s or 20s in terms of satisfaction. So overwhelmingly, your week is unproductive, unsatisfying, and you are unhappy because your energies, your natural skills, your experience are just not being capitalized upon. Overworked in a square peg round hole scenario, be underworked in just that same place. There's just as much as there's a strain and a difficulty in a situation where you're overworked, you can rust out as well, where you're looking around for things to do, and maybe it's the organization which has not got its workflows sorted out appropriately, so people are sitting around twiddling their thumbs, wondering, when is it I'm going to have something interesting or engaging to work upon? Maybe it's an organization in a sector that's contracting, that where you formerly were very busy and very fully engaged and interested, you're rusting out because something is about to give. Maybe the organization is going to downsize, lay some people off, and the signal is you're sitting around without anything to do, despite your best intentions. You'd love to be doing something for your client base or for your stakeholders, but there isn't anything to do. So that's the worst case scenario, where it's 20 to 30% of your time that's just fully engaged, or rather, there's up to 70% of your time where you're not engaged, and only 20 or 30 where you are. So here's a question for you: analysis, and you've used your self-awareness to check in to establish that this is real. This is actually what you're feeling now. What are you going to do about it? Because you've got all the data on paper, you've mapped out your week, you know where the peaks and troughs are, whether it's the team meeting that excites you, whether it's customer engagement, whether it's working on something new with your colleagues, whether it's the quiet time when you stop and reflect about the successes that you've made, or the learning you've undertaken. So you know where the peaks and troughs are, and you also know whether you're at the 80% satisfaction and engagement level, where it's all good, principally, or the 50-50 thing, or the 20 to 30, which is definitely telling you something. What are you going to do about it? Because if it's like that this week, and it'll be like that next month and next quarter, what's it going to be like in 6 months' time? The acid test you could apply, using again your self-awareness and the knowledge of what it is you have as a goal and are along the way. The acid test you could apply end of the year, 31st of December, when you're sitting down, you're chilled out, you're perhaps unplugged from your usual routine and spending time with your loved ones, your family, etc. Do you want to reflect upon for the year that's just coming to a close? When you look back, what will you have achieved? What learning will you have undertaken? Who will you have served really well? So well that they kind of tell other people that that's a great organization, that's a great team, it's led by somebody who's really brilliant. Or if you're a team member, that person in that team produces some, and you should get to know what, because it will help you. What story, in other words, have to be told about you, and what truth, in other words, is going to be in the air, and how will you feel about that? So if you're in the 80% it's all good category, there'll obviously be plenty of good stories to tell, and other people will be telling them, and they'll reflect well on you. Wow, who wouldn't want to hear that? That kind of positive 360 feedback, or even informal things that you could get and collect as testimonials to the work that you've done and how great the results are that you've achieved for other people. 50-50 category, there's room for improvement. There's things that you can do in the new year you forward, which will help you learn or change or grow. But if you're in the 20 and 30 category satisfaction, so overwhelmingly things are not going great for you, there's definitely something of a challenge for you. Because you've got, and I think I said this last time around, you've got options. You've always got options. Accept the situation in which you're operating. And if you're at the 80% of engagement level, you probably are going to want to not sit back, but you're going to certainly feel you've reached a point where things are good. They could always, of course, be a little bit better, and maybe that's something as a stretching objective, a goal that you can exercise, which will take you a little bit further forward in the new year. Plus level, of course. If you're in the 50-50 category or thereabouts, it's on you to determine what's not working, which of the relationships you're caught up in or involved in even just aren't giving you back what you're putting into them. You therefore change things, refresh the content of the work that you do. Could you look for a project or something that will stretch you a little bit? There's some new colleagues with whom you could work and collaborate or influence to get some different activities popping into your in tray, so that they're going to take you into new and more productive relationships with people whom you serve, the people who are interested in the work that you do. You're in that unfortunately, where it's only 20 to 30% of your attention that's engaged in what you do, how are you going to move on? Because as I was saying a little while ago, the longer you sit in that space where things are just fundamentally not good, the less likely it is that you will produce the great results for the people whom you serve. Happy will be your workplace relationships, because if you're sitting there unhappy in yourself, you're not going to be able to collaborate, lead, or follow in the way that fully demonstrates your potential or even fully capitalizes on the skills and experience that you already have. Also, of course, if you're in that 20 to 30% of engaged and satisfied knock-on effect to your well-being. If you're carrying around that extra weight of emotional unfulfillment, if the color has drained out of your world, if your connections aren't getting the best out of you, and you aren't feeling good about being in those connections, etc., it'll show. It's bound to show up. Pick up on that. They'll notice your head down, your shoulders slumped. You don't look fed, rested, and ready for the world at the start of the day, and you look even worse on the journey home because you've just been depleted of all of your energy. And put yourself into the shoes of the other people around you, not just the people that you serve as customers or stakeholders, but your colleagues, your big boss, people who would like to take an interest in what you're doing but can't really get it because you're kind of unclear about what it is you're doing and you don't speak enthusiastically about it. And of course, your loved ones, the people around you who want to see you with a big smile on your face when you come through the door. They want to spend time with you over the weekend and in the five. All of those people deserve to get your best self. And if you're busy not looking after yourself, if your well-being is in jeopardy, in other words, because you're just trying to keep your head above water, that's not serving their interests well, serving you particularly well either. And the longer it continues, the worse it gets. The way of it. I found in coaching people that the longer that they hang on into that 30% satisfaction engagement bracket, their well-being declines, their connection nosedives, and their products, their outcomes, their results dip. That space is what I'm suggesting. Use that good, reliable, solid information that you've got because you've written it all down. You know where the peaks and troughs are. You know where the relationships work and where they don't. You know where you're engaged, where you're not, and where you're learning as well, where you're stretching yourself, developing, where you're pursuing those goals which make you a bigger and brighter and better prospect. You know where that's absent, and plug the gaps. Perhaps it's something you can do where you are, or perhaps it's something you need to do somewhere else. But you've got the experience as well as the skills, as well as the self-awareness to know next for you. It goes back to that Oprah Winfrey quote, doesn't it? That we can't become what we need to be by remaining what we are. Need to do. Who do you need to serve? How do you need to bring your gifts to the world? And equally, this is the empathy point, isn't it? Around you perceive you. If you're withdrawn, if your shoulders down, head down, nosediving for much longer than you need to be, will they feel comfortable bringing that up with you? Will they want to have performance-led conversations with you about the results? Well, it would be infinitely more productive to check in with you and ask you, well, what's going on for you? And happening as it used to because your productivity, etc., has dipped. Why do you seem less engaged than we're used to? Conversations really are fueled by your side of the argument, which is about you know where you should be, you should be doing, and you know how the present situation isn't quite working for you. Conversations will be prepared to. In fact, Be prepared to lead those conversations, to get the create the space in which you can sit down with whoever's significant, helping you move forward, and say, this isn't working. I think the reason is X, Y, and Z. I think the solution is A, B, and C. How do we make that occur? I think that gives you so much of an edge. It gives you, it shows a strong degree of empathy for a start, because you put yourself in the shoes of the customers, the clients, the stakeholders, the tribe, the colleagues, your other half, whoever it is sitting there very much aware that there's something in the air, but they don't know what it is. If you are fully aware of your own wants and needs, your own goals and objectives, then it's more than an equal conversation. You're leading it. 60-40 conversation in which you're saying, okay, I've diagnosed this based on your evidence, which you've carefully compiled. And I think the solutions are these ABC. So let's play around with which of those is going to serve us well, whether that happens to be us in the team, us as a group of people in a tribe trying to support one another's outcomes and progress and development, or us in a personal relationship, which is, after all, the foundation of everything else that you go on to do. Really big ask, isn't it? It's about empathy. It's being so attuned to what's happening for you, where so mindful, let's use the word mindful, about your own state and what it's turning out to be right now, that you are able to dive conversation and to follow it in its depth, because it's not a superficial conversation at all. It's very deep. It's bringing up those deep psychological, story-based, narrative facets of you, because everybody can see you, but do they really see you in the depth of everything that's going on internally? And if you don't know what that is, it's going to be very hard for them to fathom what it might be. They can guess or speculate, but if they speculate and guess, they could be completely wrong. So owe it to yourself, honor yourself by tuning in to Radio U and knowing exactly what's going on. That's my suggestion. That, of course, includes quite a lot of hard work, of course. It's one thing to write it all down and to check in to see that, yeah, most of the time I'm unhappy because loads of feelings in there as well. So as well as empathy in the interpersonal sense, have an empathic response to yourself. Don't beat yourself up, in other words. Because if there's been a period of however long, weeks, months, years perhaps, where you've been in denial about the fact that you are not happy with this given situation, once you open the door and see what's going on in that safe that you've been carrying around, full of your difficulties, unexplored stuff, the story that has never been pursued by you because it's just been too potentially painful or explosive or difficult. Once you get into that denial, you're almost into that cycle of bereavement, the Kubler-Ross model that you might be familiar with. Denial, first of all, and then once you've faced up to this, causes the bulk of your week to be unhappy. Anger, because you haven't faced up to that before. You've wasted so much time carrying around this weight, which has bowed your shoulders, made you look at your shoes instead of the horizon, your face, drained your life of color, and it's just meant that all of your connections and all of the people you serve have been getting less of you in another context. So denial leading to anger, leading, of course, to that kind of well, if only I would done so and so, if I just tweak things a little bit now, things will be a little bit better, won't they? Which, of course, can then contribute to the depression, as I was talking about earlier on. The longer you're stressed out, the longer you're anxious, the longer your flow is interrupted, you are to that anxiety, being drained of energy. Yes, it can lead to depression at its extremes. And that cycle, of course, just takes you way, way from where you should naturally be. The place that your energies lead towards other people, the people that you're closest to, your other half, your partner, your family, your friends, the people with whom you work. They're in that next circle of acquaintance, aren't they? Because they rely on you to be your bright, focused self. And ultimately, that third circle, the people whom you serve, clients, clients, stakeholders, customers, whatever your language is. They want you to be as bright, as dedicated, as engaged as you possibly can be, because that's where the results lie, the really good stuff. And again, as I say, that model I was talking about can take you away from that the longer you dwell there. Operating from a place of denial about how engaged and happy you are, the harder it is to accept the situation needs to change and then to do something about it, to seek out the support to which you're entitled, to form those close bonds that will move you forwards with like-minded people where you can serve their development needs just as much as they can support you with yours. And even coaching, yes, that's a solution, of course, but there are other models that work just as well to give you what you need to produce those great results which you are producing and happier producing as well. Excuse me. Who wants to be stressed out, unproductive, and just feeling like square peg in round hole? Not good, not good. So, pulling all of this together then, as our time reaches its conclusion, you owe it to yourself to take care of your well-being. Use the self-awareness that you've developed by just checking in with yourself at a regular to know what's going on in your head, your heart, and in your gut. The 80% satisfaction and engagement level to 85 or above. If it's 50-50, what could get you into the 60 or 70 level? And if you are in the 20s and 30s, what is it you're going to do to move yourself to a position which is at least percent engaged, satisfied, and happy with your working day? It's a big topic, I recognize. It's one that you could join in the conversation below. Just tell me a little bit about what works for you. How frequently do you use self-awareness, mindfulness, call it what you will, to make sure you're taking care of your own well-being, and so taking care of the well-being and needs of the people around you, and serving your clients, customers, stakeholders really well? Some tools and techniques for doing that brilliantly. And if you are already in a place where you feel that you've got everything or much of everything nicely, what's going to move you to the very next level where you are a self-awareness superstar, where every day, come what may, is as productive, as engaged, and as feeling good as it could possibly be? So what gets you through the day brilliantly, in other words? I'm sure there's loads of people who would love to know what your secrets are that make you a self-awareness superstar. I was mentioning, of course, this doesn't operate in isolation because we're social beings. We interact with other people. We serve others, of course, our tribe or individual customers and clients. Bear in mind, in a little while, I'll be coming back with some thoughts about empathy, how you can develop it if you haven't got an empathic approach to your working or your working day for sure, but the other parts of your day too. Already have, how you can fine tune it so you are outstanding when it comes to empathy, that you're always mindful of other people and your relationship to them, and you can be a star when it comes to empathy too. I'm looking forward to doing that with you, or offering you those thoughts and reflections. That'll be in a little while. But in the meantime, thank you very much for following these 3 sessions on self-awareness. I hope you feel that you're a bit more likely now to be a self-awareness superstar than you were at the beginning of these 3 sessions. And please do comment, do share as well if you found this useful. by all means share the link and point other people to this work, because I think it's pretty important as we move forward through our busy and interconnected day that we can tap into those secrets of self-awareness and become of self-awareness as we work with others, produce great results, and take care of our own well-being and other needs into the bargain. Thank you very much for following. I've been Roger. You've been great. And I look forward to sharing some thoughts about empathy with you in the very near future. Cheers.